Hey everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I am one of your hosts, the fabulous and fat Mikey. To my right, we have the lovely
Jamie.
To her right,
the fabulous Josh.
The fabulous, he's just the Josh. That's all he needs. He's Lord Josh. By the way, I'm the only Lord here.
You're trying to hand out your title?
Hey, I gotta throw it when I can. That's the only respect I get. I'm like Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect. Rodney Dangerfield. All right, and Josh, to your right is the lovely
Elisa.
Terry could not be here tonight. She's my wife, but she is home. She's actually chauffeuring the daughter. Annika's been on our show before, so we can say her name. But anyway, she is chauffeuring her to homecoming, which has to be so awkward. But anyway, let's digress. But she will be back next time we record. Anyway, so we have a fun topic to talk about tonight. This is probably one of the... We've alluded to it in the past. In fact, I think we even said on the last episode where we were going to be. In fact, since we last released, you actually released a short one.
Yep.
A taste from what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the old Montana State Prison.
And our fun 12-hour investigation. In
Lockdown. So... First of all, is anybody here besides the Raymonds? Well, actually, never mind.
We don't count.
Because Elisa, you've been
I've been there too.
This is the first time I've ever been locked inside a prison overnight.
Yeah, no, it's more like a false lock. I'd love to say it was like, hey, we're locked in, padlock, and no way out, but yeah, it wasn't that cool.
Well,
it's close
in an
enough.
emergency, you could get out, but it kept everybody else from getting in.
Yeah.
So, but you told us, like, when we were going out there, it's like, if we need to get out, we got to call the sheriff to come let us out. So I was telling all my coworkers and everybody, he's like, yeah, we're going to be locked inside, and if we have to get out, we have to call 911 to get out and say, we're locked in the prison, I need to get out.
That was actually a retelling of a story about the prison. There was 4 teens, I think it was 4, and they jumped the walls. Which is,
I don't even know how they did that.
Yeah, that's like no small feat in itself, right?
They're teenagers. They can do anything. It's illegal.
So they jumped the walls, and the prison's unlocked during the night. Like the 1912 cell block isn't locked up at night. And so they went into the 1912 cell block, and they're hanging out, being, stupid, fun teenagers. And they're like, let's go to a scary place at night. Let's see what happens. And they ended up calling the sheriff to get him out because of all the stuff that was happening in the building, all the bangs and noises and stuff that were going on. And so they got truly scared and trespassing.
Yep.
So what's the follow-up? Were charges pressed?
I don't.
Did they get to spend time in the Montana State Prison?
Yeah, I doubt it.
On an official basis?
It was probably more of a fine, like, hey, here's a $100 fine, or I don't know, whatever the fine for trespassing is in the grand state of Montana.
Either way, kids, don't be stupid.
No.
But, well, even just when we were there during the day, right, there was a large family that was there at the same time, and they had a bunch of kids, and obviously they were more interested in socializing with all the other adults. And this is what we just went through as a group just during the day, as like regular tour. You go in, you pay, and you can go do a self-guided tour.
It's kind of nice to like check everything out before you go in at night.
Yeah. That way you know that when you walk around the corner, that dark figure standing in the corner, oh yeah, it's a mannequin.
Yeah, right?
I'm not big under the mannequins.
And there's a lot of them in there.
Yeah. There's a lot. The creepiest ones, I think, are the ones in the cells, honestly. But
there was some funny ones in there too.
But that being said, anyway, this family was walking around there, and we walked around the corner to the north side of cell block of the 1912 cell block. It's kind of where you go into the, what is it, East Siberia, I think. It's up.
Yeah, it's
close to that corner.
It's the street side, right?
It's the street side. Like across the other side of the wall from there is the Prison Pizza restaurant. So we get around the corner there, and these teenage kids are climbing up the wall, like they're rock climbing.
2 gals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I come across them too. Yeah.
This was right after we also saw the little kids. There's a sign, and there's a replica of a little gallows there. There was a gallows that we're going to talk a little bit about those coming up here, but there was a little gallows there, and there's a little sign that says, "Please do not play on the rope or the gallows,
or put your head in the noose."
Your head in the noose, and these kids are sitting there putting their head in there, like, look at me, and it's just like, yeah. Or even in the warden's office, they were playing with the phones and all the typewriters and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's not like these are antiques or anything, you guys. Come on.
They probably have never seen a typewriter in their life.
I said that, though, and one of the adults that was with the group gave me the nastiest look. And I was like, what? You want to go?
Want to throw down?
You guys are being disrespectful.
That's right.
I think that's the same group that were running up and down that blasted ramp.
It was awful.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah. I am not a fan of people who let their kids run wild in places that aren't meant to be run wild. Like, they could have went out into the yard where the basketball hoops and like the
for sure.
the shuffleboard and ran all around there.
Go play tag on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal. Like, there's a baseball field there. Like, go play. Like, it's outside, right? Yeah. But like, not inside the building with these displays. Like, there's some stuff there that's like, 70 years old plus now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and there's glass everywhere, and so it's like you don't want to see people get hurt or whatnot, and they will kick you out if you get too wild.
This is how I know I'm turning into my dad. I just can't stand any of it.
Yeah. Well, like, you'd hate to see someone hurt. Like, that's an actual noose. It's a real gallows, right?
Yeah.
Now it's not a drop door gallows like the current day stuff, but like, it's still a noose, and thankfully it's thankfully it's low to the ground, so like the chances of actually hanging yourself are nil. But you still don't want to see someone get hurt.
Yeah. So if you ever go to the Montana State Prison, just leave your kids at home. Or watch your kids.
Just teach them.
Yeah, watch the kids.
Teach them to be respectful.
Yeah.
Put them on those little leash backpack.
Yeah. Because the prison's old.
It is. Very old.
It's 102 years old. At least 102 years old. For
the newer stuff.
For the newer stuff.
Yeah.
And it's older than that for the rest. And so, like, it is crumbling a little bit, and it is kind of like parts are falling apart, and they're fixing them.
Kind of like me.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Called age, right? They're fixing it as best they can, and they're doing their best. But, like, it is still an old 100-year-old building. Like, let's not be silly and get hurt.
But all of that was because these two teenagers were climbing the wall, and it triggered that emotion. So, sorry, I was triggered. You can cut all that out if you want. All right. Well, let's talk about it. So we did do the walkthrough during the day. It was interesting to have my daughter talk about the things that she felt, because we weren't going to have her as a teenager be there overnight. It's just not quite safe yet for teenagers to be out investigating horrible places. And she's a little sensitive, so we just didn't want to take her in overnight. But it was interesting getting her take on where she felt things and what she felt. And I don't know. It was just fun being there during the day and seeing it. Because then when you go back at night and it's all dark, it's creepy as hell. AF. Creepy AF.
I love how you were staring at me when you said that.
That's his verbal check.
It was my, oh wait, I'm about to say something bad.
So,
if you guys aren't aware, Elisa has this little squirt spray bottle. And every time I cuss, she sprays me like
a cat that's doing
spraying a cat that's on the furniture. Yeah.
I'm good aim too, so I can.
She didn't like she wasn't here for the episode, but she didn't like the
F-bombing?
The surprise, mother. You know what I'm talking about. Go back to the game night one.
Yeah, the sleepover games.
Yeah. So, I'm going to be better.
So, you guys went into West Siberia in the daytime, right?
Yes.
What did you think of the Ratman sculpture in West Siberia?
So, I was glad I'd seen it on a video before. We'd watched videos on YouTube, and so I'd seen it before. I knew it was there. I'd forgotten it was there, but it's like, I remember seeing this on the video. It makes no sense why it's there or for what reason. Was it made by an inmate or something, or was it just something somebody put in there just to be goofy?
I know the story behind it.
Oh, do tell.
So they had an art exhibit or exposition.
Exhibition?
Yeah, exhibition. and they had a bunch of local area artists, and they did art associated to the prison, right? And so this one artist, and I don't have their name, but they did the Rat Man, which is actually Miles. It's his face on the body of a rat. And so it's his depiction of how he was in his, like...
You dirty rat.
Yeah. You caused the biggest riot in the country.
I bet there were a lot of people in prison that were called rats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
But not in a good... That's not a good thing. Because once somebody calls you a rat, then you get shanked.
Yeah, and there's some good examples of shanks inside of that.
They're a big rat. That's actually what the girls liked the most. The teenage girls that we had, they liked the most.
The Rat Man?
My daughter, no, the shanks. There's a cabinet full of all the different shivs that they had up there, and homemade knives and things. And yeah, they thought that was probably the most interesting case of the whole place. So
Interesting.
the case I like the most is right there when you walk into the admin building. It's off to the right, and it's the one that has the shoes that they put on people who are going to run away.
Oh, the concrete shoes.
Yeah.
And each one weighed 30 pounds. Like, I can't imagine.
why just did they weigh 30 pounds?
Yeah, it says they weighed each shoe weighed 30 pounds.
So here's what I thought with this, and I don't know how they worked, but so the shoes, if you've not seen them, you can Google it, check them out. They're really easy to find. But they're like, the soles are like 6-inch thick or 5-inch thick concrete based on regular shoes, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's supposed to keep you from escaping?
Yeah, it slows you down.
Well, why don't you just untie the shoes and step out?
See, I thought the same thing. I have no idea.
It's like, that's really easy. And then and then they don't hear your shoes clamoring anyway. Plus, it's easier to scale the wall with toes versus the actual leather-soled shoes.
Well, you got to remember that the one thing that we don't see anymore, because we only see the walls, right? The actual fortress-looking prison that's there.
Right.
But that prison was on, it was like 50 acres or some crazy amount. It extended beyond the walls because there was the turkey farm, and then there was other stuff that was out there. And so, like, they were beyond, there's a chance that they were probably beyond the walls, but there again, why would you put an inmate who's a flight risk beyond the walls?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were constantly in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But imagine wearing those shoes and then going up and down the metal stairs.
Oh.
Imagine falling down.
That'd be horrible if
in those shoes.
Just falling in general.
Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they kind of remind me of like Kiss boots. The band Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Who's playing here next week, by the way?
Oh,
Coming to Utah next week, end of the world tour.
Yeah, you're coming to USANA, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I just gave away tickets at work.
What fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so the prison, that's the girls like that. Anyway, so as far as the Rat Man, going back to what you asked.
Yeah.
It didn't really creep me out. It was just weird.
Yeah.
And I felt like where its placement, it was just down there. And it's an area they call West Siberia. There's an East Siberia and a West Siberia. It's underneath the 1912 cell blocks. And they are basically kind of like a solitary confinement type cells.
Really dark.
It's dark. They're cold. It's like concrete. Very old, worn concrete by now. But
yeah.
It's not a place that is. It's not like it's up with all those bunks and sinks and toilets and stuff. It's just dark, cold. It's a dungeon, essentially. And
it'd be miserable.
It would be miserable to be down there. And they called it Siberia because it was cold.
Right. So you can see it better in East Siberia, but there's only like one heater in those areas, and we're talking about radiant heat, and there's nothing else. So it's basically just enough heat so you don't die, and it's just gonna be miserable in there. But that was where Miles spent. So before the 1959 riot, that's where Miles spent his time. So I'm wondering if they put it in his cell. Was why it's in that spot.
Oh, that could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always thought, though, it was like George Bush.
It does kind of look like him.
It kind of does. Yeah.
It looks like W.
I'm going to have to pull up a picture of it. As far as Miles, for all those who's at home, I don't know if you talked about this on the last...
we did not.
So we'll give a little bit of history on it. In 1959, there was a riot. There was two gentlemen that propagated the whole thing. There was a guy named Jerry Miles. He was like a career criminal, been inside a whole bunch of other prisons, Alcatraz. In fact, he actually sought out because he wanted to be in the Montana State. You get to the point where they can't thrive without being in prison or being locked up. It's their safety zone. And so anyway,
and he's 43.
He was older, and then he convinced this other young guy named Lee Smart,
who was 19, who was in prison at the age of 16, and he had a bit of a crush on Miles.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Did Miles return the?
No, it was prison.
I don't know.
It sounds like he just used it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's kind of like Vegas. What happens in prison?
Yeah.
We just don't talk about it.
But the thing that I found interesting about that whole thing is that they had a 16-year-old, a minor,
A couple of them, actually. Yeah.
in prison with a bunch of hardened criminals. Like today, you wouldn't. There's no way a 16-year-old is going to go to be in normal lockdown with prisoners.
Yeah, no, that was the thing that I thought was interesting, reading about prisoners that were there. And we'll come back to the investigation, actually, here in a minute for all of you at home going, just talk about the ghosts. This prison was interesting. Like, there was one group, there was 3 males and 1 female that had committed a crime up there not far from Deer Lodge. In fact, it might have been even in Missoula. But where they lured a guy into an alleyway, robbed him and beat him up, and then he ended up dying. But they stole a car. They went on this big road trip spree. In fact, they got down to a place called Smithfield, Utah, which is not far from where we are. That's up near Logan, if you're Utah. And the one guy ditched the other 3 and took the car, and he actually went back up went back home up to Montana. But the other ones were all caught in Colorado. But yeah, the girl was 16. There was another guy that was 16. There was another one that wasn't charged because he was a minor. Because he was younger than 16. He was maybe 16 to Golden's, but he was like, I'm assuming he was 14 or... Yeah, and the guy that they beat up, eventually, he had actually died in the hospital. And so they were charged with murder, and they were sent to the old Montana State Prison. And yeah, you can find pictures of them real easy. I could find their names if you wanted, but anyway. It's just really interesting that they would lock up these teenagers in a full-on prison.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, nowadays you get sent to juvie.
They go to juvie, and
then if they get sentenced beyond that, they turn 18, they'll send them into the bigger prisons. But yeah, that's the part that I found crazy, because you would think that if Lee Smart wasn't actually in that prison and not influenced by people like Jerry Miles, that he wouldn't have actually been part of the riot.
I don't know. He was the one that did probably the most damage.
Well, and he was probably protecting him from other people too, because he's so young. Like
probably
fresh
went
meat.
both ways.
Yeah.
Buddy system.
Which, by the way, fresh meat is a delicious pizza at Prison Pizza next door.
So good.
Yeah, we'll put on our plug here. That pizza was pretty good.
It was delicious.
We had, I don't even remember what the one we had was, but they had one that was like an Alfredo sauce, like a white sauce with cheese, and then it had mushrooms and sausage. It was fantastic. Mwah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Anyways, so the riot.
Siberia's. So we were talking about the Siberians.
Talking about riot.
Do you want to go with the riot?
The riot.
Let's go with the riot.
So in 1959, this is early 1959. I want to say it was January, February. There was a riot that was led by Jerry Miles, this career politician, career criminal,
Same thing.
and his friend Lee Smart. And it was actually a 36-hour-long riot. They took control over guards. And it was actually really interesting how they did it. They kind of picked them off one by one. The first one they threw, somehow they had a bottle of gasoline, and they threw it on the guard and said, all right, we're going to light you on fire. And they had a broom, and they're like, we're going to light you on fire if you don't give us the keys. And they were able just to quietly, one by one, take control of these guards, and then they locked him in a cell and just let more people out. And it was really interesting how they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, and the prison was overcrowded in '59 and understaffed, and so it'd be easy if you got one guard right? Because I mean, you've seen the catwalks out there.
Yep.
Like, essentially, he threw the keys over a big opening.
It's like a big gap.
Yeah. And there's no... Between where the cells are in the 1912 cell block, and we call it that because it was built in 1912.
Right.
So you're talking about a 47-year-old prison at this point in time. But between where the guards walked was on the outer walls of the cell block, and where the cells were, which were in the inner section of it, there's this big gap. And the only way to get up and down was to walk back to the middle and then go up and down the stairs. Mm-hmm. And so guards actually put in like 2x6s that spanned it across.
So I wondered about all those boards. Did the guards cross those?
Yeah, they'd walk across those.
Oh, that's scary.
Just to not be grabbed at by guys as
Well,
you
no,
walk
just
past
so
others?
just so they could walk. You know, if they needed to go into the cell block area and then back out, they needed a way to go back
so
and
they didn't have
forth.
to go all the way back down to the one
Right.
end. Okay. No, I saw all those big boards across there, and I didn't understand exactly. I'm like,
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
and it's 40 feet up, right, to the top
that's
level.
Terrifying.
crazy. Yeah, so it's 4 stories. This cell block, yeah, there's 4 stories to it, 4 different floor levels.
Yeah.
And the higher you go, the hotter it gets.
Oh yeah, it gets warm up there.
Hey, but they had a great view. You could actually see over the wall.
And into the neighbors.
into across onto Main Street. You could see the warden's house from up there.
Yeah.
Penthouse view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to imagine those weren't for like the best, those were like your lower.
Yeah, but could you imagine though? Because like it gets 100 degrees in Deer Lodge, Montana, in the summer. Like you got to bake.
Oh, on that top floor. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's prison. You're not supposed to be in. It's not like today. I don't know. I've never been to prison.
That's right.
Knock on wood.
I mean,
I'm sure I'll do something stupid in my life, and I'll
most
end
of
up
them
there.
didn't even have TV when it was built.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it was prison. It's not supposed to be easy. It's punishment.
Yeah.
And some of them, I don't know, it's weird that they got to where they thrived on that punishment, but nonetheless, yeah. So it's 4 stories tall. It's hot. It's crazy. It's uncomfortable, and
And they managed to take it over in a matter of like an hour.
yeah, it was nuts how they just. And the warden wasn't there at the time. The deputy warden was there. They ended up. They had one accomplice. I forget his last name. It started with a C though, I believe. Which doesn't help anything. That's
Sure doesn't.
I'm sure his name started with a C.
Maybe it was an S.
It was another guy that kind of helped him, and when the riot once he figured out that the riot wasn't going anywhere, he actually kind of gave up and went back to his cell. But the deputy warden, his name was I believe it was Theodore Roth or Ted Roth.
Yep.
So they went in and they used to have kind of an open door policy. You can come, you can air your grievances and whatnot. He came into the office, and they actually, with a rifle, Lee Smart shot him. There was a rifle that they'd gotten from one of the guards. He shot Ted Roth, the deputy warden, several times, I think it was, in the chest, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And killed him. And then it's interesting because there's lots of people that worked there at the prison that they didn't hurt. Like there was the ladies there in the office that they kind of just let them be.
Well, you got to figure like their grievance wasn't with the general staff. Their grievance was with the warden and with the guards at that point in time.
But even most of the guard, they didn't really hurt him. They just took him and just held him.
Yep. Yeah, I think one other guard died.
Yeah, there was. It was in the initial
takeover.
It was when they shot the deputy warden. It was right there in the office.
Yeah, and because most of them I don't think were armed. Like I don't think that most of the guards were armed, and so like if you got one prisoner with a gun, like you're already out.
You're already outgunned.
You're
It's like,
outgunned.
okay, you're the boss.
Yeah.
Whatever you say. The warden, they did finally get word to the warden. The warden they came over, and he was actually coming back to work, and they were trying to alert him. It was like, hey, wait, don't come in. And he was alerted. And I didn't understand quite. I'd read about it, and there was tunnels back down next to what's now the theater, and next to the chapel. And I didn't quite understand how he could get into these tunnels without getting into the prison.
So, No, I know how they did that. So,
I do too. I figured it out. I'm like,
yeah,
oh.
it's in the main guardhouse.
Yeah, right at the front door.
Yep. So it's right at the front door. There on the right hand side. There's a stair. There's a metal door down there now, right? Mm-hmm. So our first time we go to the prison for an investigation, which was 4 years ago, right? Our Heather, who was our tour guide, she walks us into that room, right? No lights on. Well, all of our flashlights are off, right? And then she takes her, I think she had a stick or something, and then she banged on it in the dark.
This big,
No
gigantic
warning.
metal trap door.
Yeah. I think we all pooed a little on that one.
But this tunnel goes down from that front jar shack underneath the wall, you're inside the wall at that point, but it goes down under, and then you can actually get into the prison there. And the only keys that they weren't able to get were the keys that got in from the inside into that tunnelway.
Yep.
So the warden was able to come in and to kind of negotiate terms, and they wanted to get like news people in there, and he's like, no, they I don't remember exactly. I'm doing really bad at telling this story.
No, you're pretty close. Like he would go down there and he would try to negotiate and try to get a peaceable ending to the riot. It's just terms weren't able to be met. So they had to do the next best thing, which is bring in force.
Yeah, and they actually did send in some reporters to interview people bit by bit, and the people, Jerry Miles and Lee Smart, didn't actually want to talk to the reporters. I think which was weird, because they're the ones that started all this, but they didn't want to talk to reporters. They just wanted other inmates to tell the story of how bad things were and how corrupt the guards were.
So
the guy, when it all came to a head, and it was basically there was nothing that was going to happen because of it. Lee Smart and Jerry Miles went up one of the towers of the the 1912 cell block,
which was
and
above West Siberia.
Yeah, and these are separate towers. They don't like go into the main cell block themselves. It was kind of built like, if you imagine a big square and then 4 outer outside doors that go up these corner towers. And I don't even know what was in these rooms, because they had some pretty neat painting along the tops of the walls.
I'm wondering if they weren't like guard offices, like because there's a bathroom on one of the floors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That
so-
could have been it.
Or maybe guard barracks.
Could be.
I
Like
don't know.
it was pretty secure, right? Like there was
Yeah.
second or third floor in 1912. There's a door that leads into that section. I don't know if you looked up and saw it, but it's up there. So you can go into that tower from that.
Is that where that little round turret is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you could go in through the well, we went in through the bottom floor. So
Okay. Yeah, maybe. But it was actually fairly non-prison-esque as you're going up there. I mean, it's a metal staircase, but still, the rooms were fairly not prison-esque. Anyway, so Jerry Miles and Lee Smart run up to the top of these, and they figure nothing's going to happen of it. They're trying to figure out their next move, and they actually end up. The National Guard is called in, and one of I don't know if it was even ordered to do it or if he just got trigger happy.
no. So they were ordered to do it. So what they were going to do is they were going to take back when they brought in the National Guard, they brought in the force, right? They brought in troops, they brought in guns, they brought in, at this point in time, heavy artillery.
Yep.
And so they were going to quell the riot by force. And so what they ended up doing is they knew that Miles and Smart will hold up, the masterminds, so to speak, were holed up in this tower. So they actually took out an old-fashioned bazooka, something you use to take out a tank, and they fired 2 shots into the side of that tower. I don't know if they were hoping to kill them or just disorientate them. But after that, the National Guard, the soldiers actually stormed the tower, and right as they hit the bottom of those stairs, that's when 2 shots were fired.
Yeah, 2 shots. It was Lee Smart shot Jerry Miles in the head, kind of ripping off his jaw, actually.
Yep.
Or at least a piece of his jaw, and then he ended up shooting himself. But what's funny about this bazooka shot, right? You look up at it, and it's like, you would think that a bazooka would do a lot of damage to
But
this
it didn't look like it did that much.
No, it's like it put a little dent in the thing.
In the bricks. In the
So-
corner of the window.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it looks like it's been kind of mortared and kind of tried to fix it a little bit, but
I would have thought it would
I
have
would've
gone
like-
through it.
Yeah, like destroy the whole tower. Like half the tower is gone. No.
No,
That's how they used to know how to build stuff back
I
in the
know.
old days.
it's either that or it wasn't really that strong of a bazooka.
I don't know. Yeah. Either way, the actual bazooka is there in the
Admin building.
admin building there. It's been in a big case behind bars, so you can't get to it. But really interesting.
Yep.
But there was I believe it was one of the guards that was going in and going up the stairs to go to get to these two inmates that they'd heard the shots, and it was dark, and he had slipped on the stairs, this final stretch of stairs going up to the top, and put his hand down, and there was like something hard and wet that he put his hand on, and catching himself, and then they got up to the top of the stairs and discovered the grisly murder-suicide, and he figured out that thing that he'd put his hand on was actually the jawbone of Jerry Miles, and he took it home. It was a souvenir that was
Ew.
kept
Ew.
that was kept until not too long ago, not within the last decade, I think it was, that it was
Yeah.
actually brought back and given to the prison as like, here, put this in your museum.
Yeah. They have it in a little shadow box.
Why would you keep that?
Yeah.
Well, now it's a trigger object.
It is.
Well, would have been nice if they'd had that out for us to play with, but they didn't.
Didn't ask.
Yeah, but
I
don't we
prob-
have a picture of that somewhere?
We do.
I probably wouldn't have asked anyway, even if I could.
I keep forgetting to ask. But that's because
Ew.
Heather is no longer with the prison, and so I don't ask those questions anymore.
You don't feel like you know them well enough.
No, don't know them well enough.
Well, they were gracious enough to let us come invade their prison for the night. So, yeah, so that was the riot. So that's what Jerry Miles was. Rewinding back down into that little rat man thing. And, yeah.
All right.
So,
let's get on to the night then.
let's get into the night. So we're back there at dark. Anyway, so for us, so you now, Josh, you had your friend there, Travis. And so you took him out just kind of first thing because
Yep.
he could only stay for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you guys went out. Well, we kind of, I don't even know what we were doing.
We went over to the hospital, didn't we?
That's right. The first place that we went was the hospital. I kind of followed. Elisa and Terry were kind of led the way, and I was just trying to catch up. And for some reason, they wanted to go to the hospital wing. So it's its own separate building in the yard. It's not, doesn't have all the bars and everything on it. It's just like its own little, it's like almost like a little warehouse type of thing.
And it's like just a long strip,
Yeah.
right? Just a long white building, one floor, not much to it.
Nothing ominous about it.
But
Nothing real.
but the thing is when we were all talking to the guy the security guy,
Maintenance.
Oh, the maintenance dude.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that if you go up to that building on one end, you can hear a lot of bangs and things like that going on. So we're like
Like the
that's
people inside.
yeah, that's where we want to go. We want to go where we're hearing everything and hopefully get something going as the night starts to ramp it up. So yeah, we went over to that hospital
Now,
first
you
thing.
went there first, right, Josh? You got there just before us because you said you saw.
Yeah,
Oh, we might have gotten in there.
Yeah, you and
first.
Travis went
and I
there
got in
before I
first.
did.
because we were setting up
Yeah,
or
we-
worrying about the extension cord.
And we're in extension court. We were also trying to set up Terry's Boo Bear in the tunnel when you were doing all this. Did you want to tell us just the hospital portion?
Yeah.
Who you talked to and what you ran into there?
Yeah, so Travis and I, after we did our little stint in Max, we went over to that hospital section, which now today is the prison life exhibit. So that's 1/3 of the building that's actually open to the public. And we did a dowsing rod session in there, and we ended up talking to William Hayes. So, for those of you who don't know, William Hayes was a horse thief who was doing 10 years for burglary. But he was a cellmate of George Rock, who those two together, George Rock was spending a 99-year sentence for murder. He murdered a guy by the name of Ed Carl. But anyway, those two got this great idea to escape prison. And they ended up killing the deputy warden at the time, and almost killing the warden. So the warden was actually holding their open door policy at the time, so he was actually in the building. They needed, I think it was 105 stitches to close his neck wound. He almost was decapitated, and they missed his carotid artery by a quarter of an inch.
And he wasn't even fazed by it. He's like the Black Knight from Monty Python. It's like, it's just a flesh wound.
He ended up blacking out.
Like puts his hand on it. Just put pressure on it. It'll be fine.
But both George Rock and William Hayes were executed for their murder and attempted escape. The gallows that Mike was talking about earlier, those are the replica of the gallows that George Rock was executed on. Hayes was executed off site.
Oh, it said that he was actually executed by the same one.
Was he?
I thought, yeah.
Maybe
So what happened?
Maybe I misread that.
Yes. So what happened with these gallows? The warden thought he was a genius. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to come up with a different way of hanging people rather than the big drop floor where the trap.
Didn't have it back then.
So it was a means rather than like hanging them from something, or standing on a chair and have them kick the chair out or whatever,
Which is
or on
brutal.
a horse. It was, let's get a 300-pound bag of whatever, and we'll just have it jerk them up. And the whole thought was that it would break their neck just from the impact of being jerked upwards. Well, it didn't work. And the first one...
And it didn't work on purpose.
Yeah.
They set the weight wrong on purpose.
They wanted them to suffer.
In my reading, it never said anything about this, about doing it on purpose wrong. It was just...
Yeah, I found articles that stated that they did it.
So
on
they
purpose.
sat there, and it was actually kind of brutal watching the guy basically strangled to death.
15 minutes.
And so they did that, and that was in like the fall. And then the next spring, they did it again with William Hayes. George Rock was the first one. And then the next early spring, they did the same thing with William Hayes. Also didn't work.
Yep. Also
Didn't just
on
snap
purpose.
his neck.
Also on purpose. But what was interesting about this this session is I asked him a couple questions. I asked him, one, did he regret killing the warden or the deputy warden? And his answer was no. So I was like, did you regret what you did to go to prison? And he said yes. And so that was the only regret he had. And so I asked, well, I asked if the warden was crooked. Was that why he didn't regret what he did? And again, he answered yes. So the interesting thing is Conley, after he stopped being warden, he was actually indicted on charges for misuse of government funds, which he was eventually acquitted. But I kind of think that was more cronyism than it was anything else.
Yeah, well, Frank Conley had been around. He was born in like 1864 in Maryland, and at 16 he goes out west just to go do the American Western dream, find gold, whatever. And lands in Montana. It's the Wild West, right?
Oh yeah,
and he ends up knowing the right people, and ends up as the warden of this new prison that's built in like 1879. I think was when it was the first prison was started in the territory. Montana wasn't even a state at the time.
Nope.
And he's in charge of this just little jail, and it turns into a bigger prison and a bigger jail and a bigger jail, and they keep adding. And he did have some he was very much into using the prisoners for labor, whether it was the prison's labor or other people's labor. And so there were a lot of those things were him loaning out or renting out prisoners as, I don't know, what, you need your shed painted? Sure, $40. I'll send a couple of prisoners over.
Yeah.
And they didn't get paid for it.
No. I honestly think I get this picture in my head of like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
For those of you who've seen it, right? There's a scene in there where the warden gets paid. He gets paid with a pie, right? And he's like, "Oh, my wife baked you a pie," and then he gets his pie and he looks under and there's an envelope full of cash, and so I have a feeling that's what's happening. So he was like getting a double dip, right? The state of Montana, because it was a state at this time. They were paying him money, and then he was getting this side kickback money,
Right. What happens? There's another movie I was telling you guys about called Brubaker that Robert Redford's in, young Robert Redford, and where he goes in and finds that this prison, they have this gigantic, expansive farm, but yet the prisoners are eating mush, just like crap. It's like, where's all these vegetables going? Well, they're selling it to all the, these are supposed to be for the inmates, and they're selling it to local farms to sell in their stuff. And yeah, so same sort of thing.
Yep.
I'm sure this was not an uncommon practice.
No. Yeah, it was an interesting dowsing rod session in there. And the coolest part about it, the whole thing, was there was I asked to point the rods to point where he was standing at the time, and he was actually standing about 3 feet in front of Travis and I. And I found that out because I ended up sticking out my hand, and I was like, oh, like you can feel this really intense cold spot, which we always theorize is a spirit standing there. For those of us who can't see them. I'm looking at Elisa.
We all look at Elisa.
And so I was like, that's really cool. And then Travis, having done this before in his life, right? This is his very first paranormal investigation. He stuck his hand out in the same spot and was able to feel it. The neat thing is it moved, and it ended up going right on my left arm, right by my elbow, and I could feel that area getting really, really cold. So like it just moved with it. So it was pretty cool. And then we left because it's like for like doing dowsing rods can wear you out. Like can get you can just get drained.
Right. So we went in there. Elisa and Terry went in there. Lisa, why did you guys go in there?
Well, because I heard it was supposed to be active, right? So I was like, all right, I'm beelining it over because I want the night to start out good and hopefully get something and just keep that rolling. So yeah, we went in there, and then right when I walked through that door, I saw with my actual eyeballs something forming, like in the process of forming, and you could see legs and a torso, like halfway up the torso. And then like once I got in there, because I was double taking, right? I'm like, I can't believe I just saw that. And then it was just gone, just disappeared. And it was, as soon as you walk through that door, it was in the back right corner, probably up a couple feet.
Back right corner, so it'd been right in front of you when you walked in the door?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's why that's where we started our investigation. And we also did a dowsing rod session right there. And we also felt the cold. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, okay, he's right here, guys. Put your hands there. And so we're all...
Here's what's funny. So he liked Elisa, and he liked Terry. He didn't really want to have much to do with me. I was like, well, that's rude. But that's how it works. You get two lovely ladies, and you got the fat slobby guy. And I don't want to talk about
He
it.
ended up liking you.
He did by default because you guys said, here, I'm tired. But, like, so he would make Elisa's K2 meter
Oh,
go
it was
nuts.
going crazy. It was awesome.
But I would take mine out, and I'd go put it next to it, and mine wouldn't do anything. And he was doing that on purpose because he liked her, didn't want anything to do with me. I'm like, that's just rude. And so, anyway.
But Terry
continue.
so Terry had the rods. She started it off. And,
Now, you actually said that he wanted to talk to her.
Yeah. So, for me, I can tell emotions, feelings sometimes, I can't say that I'm always right. I mean, that would be dumb to say that I'm always right, but I'm not. So, but it felt like he wanted to chat with Terry, is what it felt like. So I was like, Terry wants to talk to you. Let's use you as with your dowsing rods, because she's really good at that. And of course it was like perfect. It was working out great, right?
And she actually asked him, is it because I'm wearing a brace?
Yeah.
Because she had an arm brace on.
So what we found out is we couldn't find out his name. He said that he didn't want to share his name because of the prisoners, right?
Yeah, they weren't allowed to give their name when they actually worked there because of the possible retribution. So they I guess they used pseudonyms.
I don't know. So we named out a name and we're like, no. And then I had James popping in my mind like crazy. It was like, James. And this is kind of what we do when we can't figure out a name. We just make one up, right? And then we'll go until they like the name. And that's what, so then we can identify them instead of just saying spirit in this room. We can say,
Can we call you Matthew?
yeah. So I said, okay, can we call you James? And it was like, yes. So we started calling him James. Found out he was a nurse there, and he had a family, and he had 2 daughters and a son, and that his wife had passed on, but he wanted to stay there and take care of that area.
He was taking care of the prisoners still.
Yeah.
A loyal practitioner right there.
Yeah. So, once Terry got hurt because of her wrist that she's having an issue with it, after a while, the rods, it was getting hard to hold. So then she passed them to me, and it just wasn't working for me. So I was like, if we give them to Mike, will you try chatting with him, right? And then all of a sudden, like, I can't hear it with my ears, but I came back to and listened to the recording.
Right.
And there's a full-on man chatting it up. Like, he's
Right.
got a full sentence in there. I can't make it out 100% what it is.
Right. I had the same thing on my recorder as well.
Yeah, so cool. It sounds like there's a man. A lot of the times when you get these EVPs, they sound distant or they sound breathy. But this one, it didn't sound breathy, but it sounded distant.
Yeah.
Like he was in another room, right? So, and you know when you hear somebody in another room, it's mumbly, it's not fully clear. So that's really what it sounded like to me. But it was a full sentence, and he ended up talking with Mike, and
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. In fact, I actually, in my recorder, got a just after that. So I tagged that, and then I heard him a kind of a it was like a gust of air that was blowing into it, but you know, it wasn't near any of us. You know, it wasn't near any of our mouths. It was down, you know, in front of us, and so
yeah.
don't know if that was him or not. I don't know. But it was actually, it was really neat. He liked to stay there. It was kind of a sense of duty to care for the prisoners there. And I'm like, well, you're the only one? He's like, no, they have shifts still, which I thought was interesting. You know, so he gets relief.
Where's he just go?
But it's like, why would you stay here? And it was just out of a duty to just doing his job. We'd asked him if he'd seen a lot of gory things, and he said that yes, he definitely has seen his share of horrible things. I don't know if he was there during the 59 riot. Mm-mm. But he did say that there's all sorts of things. Prisoners are always beating each other up and, you know, shanking each other, and so there were plenty of things he'd seen.
Yeah. And I also got another EVP, and I can't tell if it's a young man or if it's a female. If it's a young man, it'd be like a boy almost.
Is this in the hospital?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and this one's like 5 minutes later after that one, after I handed you the rods. Mike is asking, do you know the shave and a haircut? And so we do that often when we're hunting to see if we can get a response, like the knocking response to
sometimes
reply.
it works. It's worked.
It does.
Amazingly.
Yeah. So he's asking that question, but I knew that there were other spirits in that room, but they were back in, it's kind of like a square that you can walk around, right? And they were in that far left side. And so I'm wondering if there was conversations or whatever was going on, but I got either a boy somehow or a female saying, that's why, for my EVP. It doesn't go along with anything.
Maybe that's where that mumbling that sentence came from, was over on the other side of the wall as well.
It could have been, but I got a female or a boy saying, that's why. So I'm like, what were you talking about?
Yeah, right. With James, the only reason that he did let me talk to him was he liked that I was respectful. I kept calling him sir.
Yeah.
And I thanked him and was just kind of, you know, thought it was cool that he was immersed, and that I called him sir. So he was like, all right, he's a polite kid. And then when we left...
Go ahead.
When we left, he was like, thank you, goodbye, goodbye, thank you. And I'm like, thank you, sir. And it was just like, doctor.
I know, but
doctor.
you know how, like, you go into a place and you're expecting, like, to feel thick and heavy and scary and, whatever. And for us, we're like, yeah, but when we left, it was like, that was so good. Don't you just feel better? Like, it just
Honestly,
was,
the scariest thing in that hospital was there was a point where we got a really strong smell of a skunk.
oh, yeah.
And I was afraid that a skunk, it was strong.
It was bad.
And I was afraid that a skunk might have wandered. So I'm sitting with my flashlight, click on, looking over at the door. I'm watching, because I don't want to get cornered in there by a skunk.
No.
So that was pretty much it in that part. We kind of left it there and moved on because there's so much space to cover at that place. So where did you guys go next?
Well, what were you doing at that time, Jamie?
I was doing the grunt work of trying to help Stacy. I sent him on a wild goose chase to go find a extension cord. Came up empty-handed in all 3 spots. So apparently people are hoarding those now too. So
that and everything closed at 5 o'clock.
well, it's Deer Lodge, Montana. Come on. But so after he came back, we walked out. We locked the gate. And then went out to his car and fished around for some tools, and he ended up being able to fix that extension cord. So that's what we were doing.
So wait, so Stacy actually fixed the extension cord?
Yeah.
He did.
He
took it apart and he fixed it.
It was a loose
Yeah.
ground.
Wow.
Way to be, Stacy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was awesome of him. And that was our silliness of not being prepared with an extension cord. And the whole reason why we needed it or wanted it was so we could record the podcast that
On
you guys
location.
listened to
Yeah.
Last
time.
week.
Last week.
Yep.
Or last 2 weeks or whatever. Last episode. So it was a bit of a frustration on that point.
Yeah.
So, and we had some other frustrations too, revolve around getting power and making sure we had the right things turned off and turned on, and it was a bit of a rough start to the night, but
It worked out.
it did.
It all worked out.
So after we got everything fixed, where'd you go off to?
I don't even remember. Didn't you and I go off somewhere? I don't remember.
We did. We took some video at first.
Yeah, we went out and did some video shots that didn't seem to turn out.
No, they did not.
It was a good try, though.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, in theory. Just didn't work.
No,
Now I am trying to remember.
nothing was it until we recorded.
Yeah.
So where'd you guys go?
Well, we did do, while we were out there, Terry did go live on, I believe it was Instagram, was it not? Mm-hmm. And they had some great conversation. People were tuning in. There were some of our friends from the UK were actually in there, and they were talking to mention, chatting. And here's the thing that sucks. So when you're live on Instagram, it doesn't save everything. She wanted to go back and reply to people who had commented. And so once it was gone, it was done, it was gone. Mm-hmm. So it's oh! So if you were one of those, thank you for chiming in. And sorry we didn't reply back to you because we thought we could go back. But tech novices, I guess, right? I don't know. But there are some live videos, I think, on our Facebook page. Or some videos that we posted. I'm not positive anymore if they're still there.
There's one live video on our Facebook page. On our Facebook page.
See, at least Facebook will keep it. Instagram,
Yeah.
Well, on Instagram, we did a couple of reels that you can go and watch. So that was fun. They have a lot of pictures in there.
Honestly, it was kind of fun. My teenage daughter, was like, let me show you how to do this. And so she was helping us do some of these reels. But we went, where did we go next after that?
We went to the administration building.
Now, the admin building was a lot of fun. Besides being where most of the different, that's a huge building. You look at it and you're like, it's a 2-story white building. And it's probably only 50 yards long and, maybe 20 yards deep. It's not huge, but there is so much in this building. So many different little hallways and offices. And we were following Elisa. We walked in the door and she goes, we need to go this way. And let's go that way. And because you could hear somebody talking.
Yeah, so there was a guy. Jamie.
Terry's not here to say it, so Jamie's a robot.
Sorry.
So there was a young guy that I caught on to, and he was in the back where all the women were working and typing and a bunch of desks back there and stuff. And I felt like he was eager, really eager to want to chat it up. And I would say he was like 18.
You said he was like 19-ish,
19,
blonde
yeah.
hair,
Yep.
blue eyes.
Yep. And I just said what I saw, and then you guys with the dowsing rods would confirm.
Yeah. You said, Mike, he wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh, good. Somebody actually wants to talk to me instead of the ladies. And I don't remember what we named. I don't know if we ever decided on a name. Mike, we did. But
I don't remember.
I figured at that point, it's like, let's not waste time trying to get a name. It was like, were you an inmate here? How many are here? And we just started going nuts with it. And he was actually really responsive. He liked the Ghost Meter Pro. Mm-hmm. He liked all the other toys you had, though.
But I don't know if you know this, Mike. So when you were showing him the Ghost Meter Pro, I got an EVP.
Nuh-uh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you're showing him the Ghost Meter Pro, and he goes, "Oh yeah." Like, "Oh yeah, okay. Like, let's go. Like, let's talk about it." You know, like it was really cool. So it felt like, you know, there was a lot of eagerness coming out of him. Like he wanted to chat. So we just got right into it.
I know we were explaining a lot of the things. I know going back and listening to it, we explained because, you know, at one point, like Terry had her cell phone out and was texting. I think this was in the 1912 cell block at that point. But they were all gathered around. She pulls out her phone and like they're like back off, like whoa. It's like it's okay. And so we were like trying to explain like this is a telephone, kind of like we had on the wall, and this is all these things that we can do, and this is a video camera, and just trying to explain to spirits who might be old and not have seen these things that this is what this is and this is what it does. And but we were talking to him, and he was actually very responsive with the dowsing rods, but he really liked that Ghost Meter Pro. And at one point, Elisa had, you know, in your mind, you told him it's really not that hard.
Well, I was like, no, I think I said it out loud, didn't I? No, I was in my mind.
It was all in your mind, yeah.
So I was sitting there at one table. I'm on kind of the other side of the room, sitting by myself, and I got like I was just telling him like what I had around me. I'm like, this one's, you know, they're fairly easy to use. You just have to go up to it. It'll go off. Like you don't have to use a ton of energy to do it. And in my head, I instantly heard like,
you go, it's not hard to do. And you want me to say it?
Just don't say the actual word.
It's like, yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes, it is, bit. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, don't talk to me like that.
Terry and I are sitting there, all of a sudden, at least like, hey, now don't talk to me like that. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't say anything to you. And she's like, I'll respect you if you respect me. And she goes into this big thing. I was like, what's going on? He's like, he just called me a beast. And I was like,
because we felt what ended up coming is this eager guy, right? So I think this was a different spirit. I don't think this was the same one that you were chatting with, that young blonde.
uh-huh.
So it was like all of a sudden I had these, like I was being shown a riot as, you know, I don't know what one it was or if this was real. I don't know. But I kept being shown like all these men going down the cell block going, ah, like they're like charge, you know? Yeah. And so it was like all these people in the administration room that we were in all at the same time.
Do you remember how they all got there? We got there and like he was the only one there.
Yeah.
And then she's like, so I was like, does anybody else want to talk to us? Like, I don't know, I'll go check. And so she could hear him like he's running down the hall and, hey, you guys, come in here and talk to these people.
Well, and we actually heard a couple of bangs during that time.
Yeah, he disappeared down the hallway towards the cell blocks to go get more people to come back.
And then in the cell blocks, we heard, I think, we heard some tappings.
Yep.
And then we heard it sounded like two little pebbles getting thrown. Too. So it was kind of like, well, that's cool. And then what else?
And then he came back.
And then he came back and
he was talking to us. And
yeah, just having conversations more than anything. I don't think there was anything too particular unless you guys got any EVPs.
No, I did get a really good EVP there. It was with this young man, and I was like, no, I had the Ghost Meter Pro out there, and he was really good with that. And I had the K2 next to it. And I was like, can you make that light up all the way up into the red on the K2. And I hear you, if you go back and listen to it, and we're going to try to put it in here. I'm going to have to see if I can get Josh to insert it, if you guys can hear it, if it works. You'll hear a no. And then you hear like because we always do like a 2 for yes, 1 for no on this Ghost Meter Pro. And so I asked him, like, can you make it go to the red? And you hear no. And then it clicks once for no. I'm like, no, that's okay.
And it's cool when we get that clarification. Like, you get both of them at the same time to validate what you're getting.
But the whole time I'm conversing with them, just looking at the machines and stuff, the instruments, and I didn't hear the no. But you go back and you listen to it, and you hear right before he answers on the Ghost Meter Pro, you hear a very distinct no. You know, very breathy whisper. And that's how most EVPs that I hear that we get often are. You know, they don't have voice boxes so much anymore, so that's kind of takes effort to make sound, and so a lot of times it is kind of a breathy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's like the reason why it's so breathy is because they use your minds to speak instead of their voice, right? Instead of opening their mouth. And so I wonder if it's like an unused talent. You know what I mean? To talk, like, if you haven't talked in a long time. I don't know. I have no idea. Just a thought.
That's a whole episode in itself about why EVPs are the way they are. And,
right?
But no, so that was like, in what I've listened to so far, now I've got almost 12, at least 10 hours of audio to go back and listen to, and it's only been 2 weeks since we were there, and I'm just going to make all the excuses why I haven't listened to it all. And
it's a lot.
It is a lot. But that being said, that's like the best EVP I have so far.
Yeah.
And was that one. So after the administration building, we told them we would come back. We said, all right, guys, we have a lot of places to go. We will come back. Because there were more that had gathered around at that point.
Yeah.
And when we did go back, he was the only one that was there, was left. Like, nah, they didn't come back.
Yeah, and for us, we were kind of like, okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, after you inquire for so long, you're like, okay, let's...
I've got most of your story. There's not much else we can get out of you other than just...
So then we go on to the next one. So where did you guys go?
So after that, we all met up and we recorded that podcast. So we took a little break, had a little food because it was, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night maybe? No.
10:30?
Something like that, right?
Yeah, it seems like it was about 10:30 or so.
I know we had talked about going up to the Death Tower first, and then Elisa says, no, not yet. They're telling us to come back about
2.
So we're like, okay, well, we'll go back later then.
So
yeah, we went back and recorded.
Yeah, we ended up in Max after recording.
Right.
All of us.
No, we all went to Max after.
Yeah, except for Stacy and Karina.
Yeah, they were out gallivanting somewhere else.
They were in the 1912 cell block up on the multi-floors. That's where I found them.
That's where you found them, but we couldn't get a hold of them for a long time.
Yeah.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Like, they had a walkie on them, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't find them.
No.
So, and I don't know. I mean, it could just be all the metal, the wood, or not wood. Jeez, metal and brick associated to it. But what's weird about that, though, is our walkies worked between the warden's office and the Death Tower. They worked just fine.
Right.
So, yeah, there's no logical reason why it didn't work for them.
Well, at the same time, when we were up there still talking to this prisoner there, we were in the admin, and we could hear, there were several times where we would hear voices.
Yeah.
It wasn't coherent, but it's like...
We were right below you, too.
Who was that?
Right.
And so I think it was probably you guys, but we kept trying to get you on the radio, and like we're not getting any responses back.
Yeah. So we just, you kind of just chalk it up
but
to...
we couldn't hear you. And then finally we did get you, and like...
Yeah.
You know.
It's, even the best of technology doesn't always work quite right. So, but yeah, we all went to Max, and we did a little bit of a EVP session at the time.
Yep.
Not long. I think only like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh no, it was longer than that, but
was it?
Yeah.
Time went by fast.
It was like a good half hour, I bet you.
The maximum security, if you haven't been there, is in a different courtyard all itself. There's a big courtyard that has all the main buildings in it, and then there's a separate walled enclosure on the back side, on the west side, where there's still more walls around, and there's its own building out there. It was actually built as the women's prison first.
Yeah, it started as the women's prison, and then after the 1959 riot, it was made into maximum security.
Right.
It's the women were moved out to a new location.
Yeah.
And so it's creepy out there because it's a very different type of a cell block.
There's a
It's-
whole nother
it's-
vibe in there.
It's a whole nother vibe. It's not as it doesn't look like it's as humane.
It's, it's really not, right? Because there's electricity out there, but there's no running water. I mean, there's no real plumbing in there. There's one shower in there.
But there's not a ton of cells in there.
There's probably
There's not.
about a dozen, maybe 20.
No, not that many.
No, there's not that.
No,
many.
it might be close because it goes back around. It goes back out and around. So maybe maybe a dozen and a, so maybe 18.
The
maybe
question
20.
is, I don't know what was in there when it was the women's prison because it was rebuilt and kind of configured to be these maximum security cells.
I can't imagine that there would be that many cells for maximum security back then.
Well, that's what.
Or I guess,
well, yeah.
Women's prison, I
Even
mean.
the women's.
There
yeah.
were several women that were incarcerated there. And the funny thing is, or the disgusting thing is, because they didn't have toilets, right? They had to go in honey buckets, which is not the porta-john honey bucket.
It's a bucket
It's a bucket.
full of sweet honey.
Yeah. And
Stinky.
when the women would get pissed off at the guards, they would throw the contents at the guards.
Oh, that's gross. Like monkeys.
Yeah, like monkeys,
Well, what are they going to do? Lock you up?
right?
Put you in
It
prison?
can't get any worse.
So
Take away your TV rights? They didn't have those.
So when Travis and I walked in there, right around the third cell, we got a very, very strong sulfuric smell. So, and it's happened multiple times walking into that building.
Ew.
So Jamie was there when the first time when we smelled that too, right?
Yeah,
So
that was that first year.
Yeah.
when it was.
Typically, those foul smells mean what, Josh?
that means there is a type 3 or a demonic entity in the building, and there is one in that place. Although he likes it, whatever. It hangs out in the back,
Yeah.
mainly. So
Does it hang out back? So in this little prison, this little separate building there are two cells back in the back that were created that have a pipe that runs at an angle that they could use handcuffs and then lock the people in, not only in the cell, but they're also anchored to this pipe. Was it back by those? Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, it's in the back left corner. Usually
Right.
is where it hangs out.
Right.
So it will come forward though. Like if you
Why not?
entice it, like
Yeah.
it will come forward. Although we've never had it come forward, I don't think.
Hey, demon, come
I think
forward.
it's more that the females that come through in that area.
Yeah. But that is also where Travis and I got an EVP. It was right in that spot.
Cool.
So what did you get?
Yeah, what'd you get?
It just says, hey.
Is it a male voice, female
Male
voice?
voice.
Male voice?
So it wasn't a female going, hey.
Like, hi.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't anything that cool.
Hey, sugar pops.
No, but it was a hey, and it wasn't either one of us. It's always kind of rough. Like it's nice if you have two guys that are out investigating, and then you get a female voice, because then there's no chance it's one of you two.
Right.
But this was 14 seconds into our investigations when we got it.
That was
So
quick.
you guys weren't even sitting down yet.
And we were walking in.
They're saying hello.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that cell has always creeped me out. I don't know if I ever told you that, but that cell always creeps me out.
You told us that because you took us in there. And you're like, stop right here by this one. Do you feel anything? And it's like, personally, I didn't. I was like, it's dark and creepy. but no. So I wonder who's in there.
Yeah, I've never had the guts to find out.
We should have.
I know.
We should have. We should have gone in there and sat in there. Or was that
Had
one
I known
locked
that, we would have.
up? Was that one closed off?
No, I think all those ones are open. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Because
I don't know.
we always go back in and
Kind of that center space.
the center space in the back right cell in that center
Yep.
space.
Yep.
Because there's a female spirit who likes to get frisky with the male population.
She didn't get frisky with me at all, that I'm aware of. Now, the Type 3 did, actually. And I'll tell you that story in a minute. But we were... Yeah, like if you watch like Ghost Adventures, I mean, it's Ghost Adventures. But yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. But they were getting, touched and stuff there. Or Destination Fear was there and the male got touched there. And everybody else, other investigations, the men tend to get...
So... A more credible source. I'm not a huge fan.
You mean
Brother Josh Raymond?
No. Jamie's dad had an experience in there, in that cell.
Oh, in that very back cell?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He was sitting on the bed, and he was in there alone. And he's just sitting there, and he's like, yeah, this is kind of creepy. And he felt right next to him. It compressed down like someone sat next to him. Mm-hmm. And he feels over there, and all he feels is a cold spot, but... There's nobody else. There's nobody.
So it wasn't like one of those Dan Aykroyd, the fly goes...
No. Pants come down, no.
Buckle starts coming off.
No.
I mean, they are locked up, so it's like, hey, there's a man.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, and that was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Because that was your dad's first time being in the prison. Or not first time being in the prison. First time investigating in the prison.
That was actually his first official investigation.
That's true.
Yeah, start him off in the deep end.
Right? We tend to do that.
Yeah.
So we all went in there together, and
Yes.
we all kind of sat in this half circle in that bigger area of the...
Kind of the big open central area there. Mm-hmm. And we set a REM pod down by that far cell that you were saying that your dad had a friendly encounter in. We'll just leave it at that. Friendly encounter.
We didn't get really anything from the REM pod, though.
We didn't. Nothing really ever set that off until Terry went and picked it up.
Yeah.
No, until you use the walkie.
Walkie-talkie.
Oh, no, the walkie-talkie totally set it off. That was a lot of fun. That's when we were trying to find Stacy, and he wouldn't answer.
Yeah.
But it was totally setting that REM pod off.
And then we got the dowsing rods out and found out that there was like 5 spirits in the room.
Yeah, and there was one point where I was asking my spirit guide. I talked to her a lot on investigations. I was asking her, Mary, how many spirits are there in the room here? And I was actually had her tapping, 1, 2, 3, 4, and between like 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, Elisa on her, she's doing a live EVP. Terry was doing live EVP with my recorder, and she was actually playing back and listening to it while I was asking this. So I don't have a recording of it, but Elisa got a recording of it.
Yeah.
You hear a female...
It's when you got to 3, it was in between 3 and 4. It sounded like a female crying, or it could be also like maybe a cough.
I will imitate.
Okay.
That's kind of what I heard when you played it back for
Wait,
me.
that's not crying and that's not a cough.
No,
It wasn't
it was
a
like
joyous.
a.
It wasn't.
It's kind of what it sounded like.
It actually sounded more anguished,
Distressed.
Okay.
distressed,
Yeah.
rather than it wasn't
Yeah.
what you were thinking, Josh.
I wasn't.
It wasn't.
My wife was thinking that.
It wasn't happy moans. It was like an anguished,
Her face.
kind of like when somebody's really sick and they're just like,
Yeah.
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 help.
Yeah. So I did get that.
She actually played that back for us live, and it was like, that is so cool.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I caught it because
I
I
like
was
when she does these.
because I was doing the live EVP session, so I was hearing them as they were hearing the EVPs as they were happening. So I caught that one. I was like, oh, everybody, do you want to hear it?
Now, a live
But-
EVP session is where you have your recorder and you have headphones on, and so while you're investigating, you're listening to what your recorder's picking up, which oftentimes your regular naked ears can't.
They can't hear.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've done this before. We talked about it at the Petite Meet, how there was the guy down there, and
Yeah.
you were hearing things, and then you're like, stop! All right, check this out. And she'd play it back, and it's just really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we did that, and that one worked out really well. So we got that, and then I also got a male who about 5 minutes in to us being there, I hear a deep male, but it's really it's electronic sounding, which is also it's not a common thing that you hear, but it does happen with EVPs, and I don't know why that is either, but I got him saying help in there. So
then for me, at one point, that type 3, that demonic spirit, did come out, and I kept feeling something tickling one of the hairs on the back of my neck. Just like one little hair that it was sitting there playing with. I'm like, something keeps touching the back of my neck. And then I felt it just kind of creep down my arm, and like my whole right arm was just cold. Everything stood up, and then I could feel it like it was petting my arm. And I'm like, it is touching my arm right now. And it was between you and Lisa and I. And you could feel it on your left side. I could feel it on my right side. And then I think we asked through the dowsing rods, and they said that it was the type 3. But it's like, well, this...
Yeah, because that was
She's petting
after,
me.
because you two left.
Yes.
We went to go do start of an experiment.
Yes,
yeah,
we did.
which we will talk about in a minute.
Yes.
But yeah, that was pretty much. Oh, and I also got an EVP of a male. It sounds like he's clearing his throat, is what it sounds like.
Let me clear my throat. Sorry.
So yeah, so
Wasn't singing. I
I wasn't singing.
so yeah, that's the EVPs that I got out of there, and we did hear a couple bings in there too, and
Yeah, we actually heard it's almost sound like it was just before that moan, actually, before that female moan, I heard it was like a shuffle, and then like a step. Like maybe I don't know, maybe she was dancing. over
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Shuffle,
That's
step,
right.
ball change. I don't know. But it was like and then a solid shoe step. But you guys were gone, and so I knew you weren't in there, and it was in one of the cells back behind us. But it was very distinct, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Here's the craziest thing for you guys. So I've told you guys before how I used to be scared to death of everything paranormal, and I went into this whole prison investigation very apprehensive.
because you never wanted to do any
I don't like prisons, and
or
I don't want to go to like crazy bins, mental hospitals. Those both creep me out, and I was really shocked at how calm and unfrightening everything was. It was all just fascinating and cool, and I was never really scared. I mean, there was definitely, you could tell, just respect it, but
right.
it was very much not a horrifying experience like I thought I was going to have. So I thank you guys for that, because that kind of, I mean, buddy system. I wouldn't go anywhere alone up there.
I mean, you're probably going to have a completely different experience if you were all by yourself.
Oh yeah.
Probably not in the good way.
Right.
We
No.
know what that happens. We've
Yeah.
seen that people go off the.
That's why we
deep
use the
end.
buddy system.
But it was just very intriguing to me how mellow it was, and I mean, yeah, sure, there's plenty of spirits there, and there were plenty of communication. Just I didn't try to get shanked and raped and beaten, and I don't know.
You came out okay.
The living are often more scary than the dead. That's what I'm.
Agreed.
Oh,
100%.
absolutely.
Agreed.
So, where do we go after that?
So Jamie and I left you guys, and we went and started an experiment. So you want to go and tell them what we
go
did?
ahead. This was Josh's idea, so I want him to.
That's true. So the prison walls, when they got expanded, right, they got moved, actually. And there was the prison graveyard on the other side of the wall, essentially, was what was there. And they had to move all the bodies. But they missed 2.
So this graveyard would have been before the wall was built in.
Well, it was after the first wall was built. So when the walls, the first walls were built, and then they were expanded, and so it was during that expansion period. And so they moved the graves, they moved the bodies, and they missed 2. And so what we were told when we first were there is that they'll get these EVPs, like when the
Water is running.
the sprinklers are running, and they'll get like drowning,
And help.
yeah, and help. And so, I got this not wicked, but kind of a wild hair idea, is that we had,
Thought you went New Jersey or Rhode Island on me for a minute. It was wicked cool. We got this wicked cool idea. Sorry.
but we have 5 dowsing rod users and a sensitive, who happens to also be able to use dowsing rods. And so what I thought would be really neat is each one of us use our dowsing rods and try to locate one of the bodies. And so we each took our turns going through and running through this. And Jamie's the one that started. She started it off.
So tell us how you did it, how we all did it.
Oh, well, let me see if I can remember. So basically, I just asked using the rods to point me in the direction I need to start walking.
And then, but nobody was watching you.
No, Josh had his back turned. He wasn't allowed to watch because we didn't want to compromise the results.
Right.
So, yeah. So I went first. He wasn't allowed to watch. When I finally reached the spot, the final spot, I then just kind of walked back to the sidewalk and then said, okay, I'm done. And then he took his turn and I didn't. I mean, I watched because
You had already done it.
I had already done it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so then I walked and I did mine. And so it was just blind in that avenue, right? So I don't know where she was at. I couldn't see where she was going. And so then I did mine and then I marked my spot. And then we called in Elisa to come and start.
Yeah, so I went up in and they were both watching, right? And then so I would use the rods and I would say...
Well, no, we didn't watch
We
you.
were-
We had our backs turned.
That's right.
We weren't
That's
going to watch.
right.
Yeah.
So I had the rods and I was like, okay, point me in the direction that I need to go and then tap the rods together how many steps I need to take. So I did that until I got to where my destination was. And then everybody was laughing and we were just all giddy at that point. So say why.
So the crazy part is she was on the exact same spot or almost the exact same spot.
No,
No,
it was
the
dead
exact same spot.
Because we turned around when she was done, and she says, "I'm done." We turned around. And I said, "Go back to where you ended up." She went back there, and I threw my hands up. I was like, "Yes," because it was dead on point where I was.
Dead on point. And then I was 4 feet from where they were at a diagonal.
Yeah,
So, and that's when we brought in Terry and Mike.
yeah. And Terry went first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Terry go first. For the sake of the experiment, we'll do this because we had stuff going on while you guys took Lisa. We'd gone into the main cell block while you guys were doing yours. Terry and Elisa and I went into the 1912 block and went up to the third floor by the cave with the cell with the demon, the demonic. There was a devil worshiper that was up there.
Oh, right.
On the top floor.
Yeah.
And since we had access to get up there that we didn't have during the day, we went up there and we were, and we'll tell you that story in just a second here. But, sorry, there's a cat climbing on the chair. Everybody gets distracted by the cats. But so when we got out there, they had Terry go first, and then finally they had me go last. And from mine, I was like, okay, lead me where you want me to go. And I walked right to the spot where Elisa and Jamie had stopped.
Oh, you were on the exact
I went right
same
to it, and so I
spot.
stopped there, and I'm like, is this the spot? And then it said, no. And it said, okay, now which way do you want me to go? Do you want me to keep going? Yes. Which way?
And I sat
And
there
then
and I was like
and
trying
then
not to look at Jamie. I'm like,
And then I changed direction and went 15 feet further, kind of off a different direction.
at a diagonal. And
So
yeah.
I stopped there, and so I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, this is my spot. And Josh goes, okay, now stay there. Now everybody go to the spot that your answer was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since we'd all finally finished. And so everybody went to their spots. Jamie and Elisa go to one spot. I think Terry's was like way off on
Way
the other
up.
side.
I don't know what happened.
Well, what happened, because I asked afterwards, I'm like, okay, why did you lead me past this? And when you use dowsing rods, and maybe it's just it works the way it works for me, I think it works the same for Terry, but it probably works the same for most of you guys. You kind of hear an answer in your head, or what they're thinking, or what they're trying to say and what I was getting from it was she's like, this is the 5th person that's made me do this, and I'm just messing with you because I'm tired of this. So she led me there, and then she led me off, and then she was like, I'm not here to do tricks.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about that is I asked everybody when they got done. I said male or female.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everybody got female.
We all knew she was a female.
Yeah. I never asked, though.
I never asked either.
I never asked.
Knew.
I just knew
I
it was a
asked.
female.
Yeah, so we have two people who are more sensitive than the rest of us, and they just knew it was a woman that that they were talking with, which is really neat when you think about it, right? Even though we had a couple missed answers there.
You told me to ask, and so I did ask. But I did get that impression anyway that it was a female. I felt just that it was a female.
Yeah, I told you to ask because at that point in time we already had 3 females. Like we had 3 female answers. And so it's like, okay, can we get location and gender so we know we have a good idea. So we think we have due to like Jamie and Elisa's and my locations, I think we have a very solid
idea
of where this body's at.
So then we went back to the truck and got out a shovel.
And we dug. And then our night ended and we weren't asked to ever come back.
Yeah, he was a little perplexed at that. He's
Yeah.
like, what the heck? No, just kidding. We didn't dig.
No. And that's we'll end up taking our stuff to the head of the board there, and then we'll see what happens from there.
They'll probably laugh. I'll go, okay, whatever.
Probably.
Probably. But we'll just see, And I did ask one other question because there's 2 bodies, right? And I asked where the other body was located, if it was inside the prison grounds or not. And I got the answer of no, it's outside. So it's on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, this is right close to the wall. And the wall is
Oh yeah, right up
20
against
feet
it.
tall, 3 feet thick, and 4 feet deep.
Yeah. It's a big wall.
It's a big wall.
And it was built by prisoners, which is awesome in that avenue. But
Yeah.
it was a neat experiment. It wasn't the only experiment we did that night either.
No. Do you want to talk about the cell block stuff we did first, or do you want to go straight to that next experiment?
No, we can totally do that.
Next experiment?
Yeah.
Let's go to the next experiment then.
This one was Elisa's idea.
So yeah. So I wanted to do the experiment where, what is it called again?
Estes
Estes method. Why Estes? I don't know. Was it first done in Estes Park at the Stanley?
I have no idea.
So what that is where someone has noise canceling headphones on, hooked up to a spirit box. And a spirit box is something that goes through radio stations, and you can do it forward or backward. You can do AM, FM. You can change the volume on it. And you can change the speed on how fast it goes through those channels. And the point of the spirit box is to let the spirits use that to speak through it, right? So I had on noise canceling headphones and I just closed my eyes because I didn't have a blindfold.
Oftentimes they'll blindfold. But
Yeah,
we
I
didn't-
normally
we didn't
have
do
a
that.
blindfold. I didn't have a blindfold, so I'll just close my eyes. And then I had the spirit box going. So we were in the Death Tower, which is the tower that we talked about before with the bazooka and Miles and Smart and how all that, where all that went down. And then, so I felt like, okay, well, because they killed the warden, so it was me, Mike, and Terry in the Death Tower, and Josh and Jamie were in the warden's office, had them go in there to hopefully see if there was a connection between the two. And they were asking questions on their walkie-talkie, and I can't hear anything. And then I'm just spitting out what I'm hearing. So it's not
Through the spirit box.
so I'm not influenced by anything that I can hear.
Right.
And we had a camera set up. Josh had a camera up there with the IR lights on it, so you could see what was going on. It was recording stuff. He couldn't see it live action, but he has recording of it.
Yep.
And then I would hold the walkie-talkie and let them play their question, and then I would actually hit play, pull the button down, so they could hear the replies coming back through.
Yeah, except we never could actually hear anything. I mean, we
Yeah.
heard
It was too
we
hard.
heard Elisa talking. But we never heard what she was saying.
So the value of that is going back and watching the video,
Yes.
and because you can hear you clearly asking the questions, and then it was more or less, and it would seem like every time that I would wait, it's like I wait long enough to, it's like no answer, and then as soon as I would
Let go of the
let
button.
go, and you guys would ask the next question is when she would start talking again.
Yeah.
So that's again the joy of the video. But
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had Stacy and Karina with us down in the warden's office, and we also had a camera set up.
Yes.
But while you guys were setting up, Jamie had her question and answer session beforehand.
Yeah. Go on.
in the warden's office.
In the warden's office. And what were you asking?
Well, I don't know. I was just trying to jab him a little bit.
A little.
Okay, I got a little aggressive, but I mean, I wasn't like yelling or anything. I was just asking the hard questions.
And also a little on the accusatory side.
Yeah, because I think he was crooked.
You got to remember, they're all innocent.
Well, this is the warden.
Yeah.
Especially him, he's innocent.
I was asking Conley some questions. So, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to go back and listen to that audio and
Me
see
too.
if we picked up anything at all.
She definitely got ornery, and she poked the bear. Very accusatory, which honestly, like, without being like belligerent, right, and following the Ghost Adventures motto of,
I wasn't being
of like,
belligerent.
hey, come at me, bro.
Oh, no. Never do that.
Never do that. But following that methodology, you can kind of like, in a way, like provoke, but not in like an awful, like stupid way.
You develop a line of knowing how far to push and how
Yeah.
far is too far. It's something you just comes with time investigating.
Yeah. But what's real interesting is while they were kind of going through their pieces and getting ready to go, Jamie's down there talking smack to the warden, and we got an EVP in the Death Tower. That says "You Beast" or "You Be."
That sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
witch.
We're on a roll here.
Yep. So I am actually thinking that is directly related to.
Right, but it's going to take us kind of going through that a little more to figure that out, because it may not be either. So
It may not be, but that was really neat. But I think one of the coolest things that happened during the Estes method was with Mike and Terry talking, and then what happened.
So we were just talking. We were still setting up, and she was still trying to get things dialed in. You guys hadn't started asking your questions yet. And so she's over there, and she's like, and Terry and I are talking, and all of a sudden Lisa's over, she goes, shh. Sorry, I had to get a look, because it was loud. It was gigantic.
whoa.
And if you
It
just
was
lost
a
your eardrums, I
giant-
apologize.
It was a giant shush, a giant,
They were, and it sounded angry.
But I don't think that it was directed at us. I don't know.
It,
But the timing was such that
was perfect.
it could have been.
I mean, it was literal, like, you guys were talking, and in mid of you guys talking, she goes, shh.
And she couldn't hear us talking.
no, I couldn't hear anything.
And so it was like the spirits were trying to talk. And they're like, shh, dude, shut up. We're trying to talk to this lady here.
Yeah.
The other one that was interesting was you'd asked what was the name of the deputy warden
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was shot. And she answered with Ted.
Yeah, I got a mail that came through, and he's like, Ted. And that's
Yeah.
I was listening for that voice, and that voice sounded very different than, the radio stations that were being scanned. And it was very clear. And so
And what's cool about this is she can't hear the questions. She doesn't know what's being asked. She's just saying what she hears.
I
And
literally
so-
could not hear a thing.
Yeah, we hear the question, and then like a second later, it's Ted.
Because you have to wait, because it does take them energy to respond, right? And it's
It
not
does.
like they have an abundance of that energy.
Right.
So you do generally have to wait in between questions to give them that time to answer.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of answers that came that she would say that didn't really make a lot of sense, but that one was very.
Right.
On point.
Yeah. Very on point.
If
Yeah.
it wasn't indirectly related to it, then dang, what a coincidence.
No kidding.
Right?
Right?
Yeah. And that's like there's a couple of methodologies that people use when they use the spirit box. Some people play it forward, some people play it in reverse. I generally play it in reverse, and the reason being is that there is a potential, right, if you're going forward, that you could get stations to line up even on a 50 millisecond sweep, which is very, very fast. It is potential that you could get enough of them to line up to make a sentence,
Right.
if you're going forward.
Right.
So I play it backwards, and the chance of that goes down considerably. But either way, like on a fast sweep, you don't usually get a whole lot of anything coming through. And the best places to do it are the ones that don't have a lot of radio stations.
Right. And
Which I
you're
don't think out in the
and
middle of nowhere, Montana, there probably weren't a lot, right?
More
No.
AM than FM, I think.
they were AM, not a whole lot of FM, but it was also like you listen for specific voices. Like you go through it'll scan through the stations and then go back and start over and scan through them again and back and start over and scan through them again. And you're listening for the same voice that comes through and picking up on that during different times of its scanning. So, and that's where the TED came through and the shush. So,
Do you think those were the same guy?
yes, I do.
That's interesting. I would never listen to an I don't like those. Terry and I will not use them.
At first, I didn't like them
They
either
drive us
because,
nuts.
well, at first it kind of gives you the creepy vibe. Like if you're not used to it, the first time you do that, it gives you the real
It's
creep
a
vibe.
horrible and it's loud.
Yeah,
It is so loud.
It is really loud.
When you use we use an external speaker when we use ours, because it's kind of like the same way like Zach does it, right? And he'll put his palm over the speaker
Right.
and ask a question and then let it go. And we've done that, and I don't like to do it for very long because when you have that playing in a dark environment where you're the one sense that you're relying on to tell you that something's nearby is your hearing, and then you just lose it. And so it's I don't like the feeling of that. Like it's almost like being alone in an area and like
Yeah.
knowing that sharks are all around you and you can't see
You do
them.
feel a lot
or-
more vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for some reason,
exactly.
because
You do.
You're not in tune with all of your spidey senses.
Yep.
Well, and at one point during the session, the room starts to get dark for you two.
It did. It got really dark, and which is weird because I mean it's already dark anyway.
So it got darker.
But it got darker, like the light was being sucked out of the room.
And this is at what, 2 o'clock in the morning, right? 2, 3 in the
No,
morning?
this
No,
was later. This
It
is
was
like
almost
4.
Yeah.
It's still dark though. Like
Yeah.
at this point in time, we're getting closer to light than we are to dark.
Oh yeah, no, you can tell when the room just gets darker.
Yeah, and that has happened. I've been to a few places, Fort Douglas, Petite Neat,
Family tree.
Family Tree, and you're sitting there in a room and your eyes adjust, right? So then it's not like you can see clearly, but I mean, you can make things out. And when that room starts to get darker, that vibe changes.
It's not just a vision thing. It's also you
Feel it.
You feel the heavy dark. And it was one point, yeah, it got very dark and heavy in there. And it's like, whoa, something just came in.
And a lot of the time, if you announce it, like if you say, hey, it's getting dark in here and la 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 la, it goes away. Because it's like it's been acknowledged, it's been found, right? And the point is to freak you out.
Isn't that usually like a type 3, a demonic spirit that
Yeah.
when that happens?
It can be like real nasty type 2 or
really nasty.
or at the type 3.
It's negative.
Right.
What
never
did you
good.
guys do?
Just said, whoa, it's dark.
Yeah, it's
You
getting
see
dark
that?
here. Can you tell it's getting dark in here? And then it just
You
goes
said-
away,
yeah,
right?
And then it, like 30 seconds later, it just wasn't a big deal. It just mellowed out. But it wasn't like it came in with like a fury. It was just like it was just checking in, going, "Hey, what's going on up here, you guys?" And then we acknowledged it, like she said, and then it just kind of like, "All right, well, I'm out of here."
Yeah, but
You
then
know?
we like
it really wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like scary though either. It's like, did you notice that it's getting dark in here? Holy cow!
yeah.
And then,
And
yeah,
then that's it.
then we just did it.
But that was pretty much it for that session.
Yep.
So
And I think we went back to base camp after that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
we went back to the administration's office.
We went back
after
to
that.
administration after that. But in that time when you guys went to go do your first experiment with the dowsing rods, Elisa and Terry and I went into the main cell block, the 1912 block. and we were there. And first we went up to that 4th level there, right in front of the devil worshiper. You can read about him online. But we stopped. I mean, we stopped right by the first, or maybe it was the 2nd cell. And I was like, let's put a REM pod here. So we put the REM pod right in front of the cell, the open cell. And then we went down probably to the 8th or 9th, maybe even the 10th cell down the row. And while we were standing there talking, and this was like where I said that devil worshippers where we stopped. And the REM pod kept going off down in front of that first cell down there. Mm-hmm. Which is awesome, because that thing never really works well for me. It's like, really, was it or was it not? And that was me. And it was really cool because like it would go off and then we were like, hey, can you step back from it again? And it would step off and then it would come back towards, it would just kind of on command. It was
definitely on command the entire time.
Yeah. And it would, okay, that's great. Thanks for being there. Will you step away from it? And it would let off. And then, okay, great. Could you come back to it? And it was really cool.
Yeah. There was even one time where we let it go for a while, thinking, okay, well, let's see if it will just go off, and it didn't. So it was still going, and so we're like, okay, can you turn that off? And then, boom.
We didn't have any recorders going at the moment.
Nope, we did not.
We didn't have any cameras going.
Of course, we did not.
So I can't document any of this.
Because and I don't like to do it as I'm walking, because then you hear it. You can hear you walk because it just picks everything up.
Yeah.
So.
We also, after that, we went down to the other side on the first floor, and there's a famous inmate named Turkey Pete.
Oh, Turkey Pete.
That's right. We all ended up down there together.
Yeah,
you guys came over there. And
they were still up on the catwalk.
It was before you guys took Elisa over to do her attempt with the dowsing rods in the grave. But over there in Turkey Pete's, in front of his cell, we all kind of set up chairs. We were just kind of chilling over there, just relaxing. Josh was sitting down on the floor, and it was really peaceful. It was crazy how peaceful it was and just comfortable.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I could take a nap in there.
It was not a creepy place at all. I mean, you're looking down all these cells, and there's mannequins in some of the cells, but it was really mellow, and it was actually kind of fun. And we were talking to Pete. We assume it was Pete anyway.
Yeah.
And getting responses, and then Josh could see, is he standing right there on the front corner? And Lisa's like, yes, he is. And it was just kind of interesting. And then you guys left. So other than that, I think that's kind of the gist of...
well, Stacy and I had one more spot we went to. We went to the showers.
It's a prison. Two guys go to the showers together.
That's right. Only one comes out. Wait, no, we both came out.
You came out?
It wasn't a closet.
Oh, as the showers.
Yes, it was a showers.
Different phraseology.
Yes, different phraseology. But what was interesting is Stacy had always wanted to investigate the showers because they creep him out. Even in the daylight. He's like, they've always creeped me out. I'm like, why? He's like, I don't know. So we ended up doing a dowsing rod session in there. And that was interesting. But during the dowsing rod session, I asked if they had gotten stabbed in the showers. And shortly after I asked that question, I got this pain in my right side, right underneath my ribs. So it was weird. It was painful. And it went away after we left it, after a few seconds in the shower, or not a few seconds, but a couple minutes in the showers. So I don't know if that was a representation of someone being shanked in the showers type of deal, or if that was just my body, being a pain in the butt because we're getting old.
Hey, stuff happens in the prison showers, so.
Yeah, it sure does. So, but yeah, I mean, we finished up. It was pretty uneventful. Yep. For the most part, in the showers anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, I was very impressed at how not scary the whole place was. There were little creepy spots here or there, but they really weren't that bad.
Oh, I forgot an experience that we had, me and Terry.
Yes, tell.
So at the very beginning, but before when we were bringing our stuff in, so we hadn't even set up yet. Can't believe I forgot about this.
Yeah, this was a good one.
So Terry and I, we were walking in to where we were going to set up. We were outside walking the inside, and when you walk through the doorway, you can go to the right and go down a ramp, or you can go straight and go down the stairs. So Terry and I went straight, went down the stairs, and she's about halfway down the stairs. There's not that many, 10, and I'm second step down, and we hear a doof. And we're like, what is that? I thought Terry was going to, what, she tripped or something or whatever. So I'm like, was that you? And she's like, did you hear that? I'm like, yeah, I thought that was you. And she's like, no, it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me. So we're trying to figure out where this came from. So I went back and started trying to, recreate that sound. And if you go to the top of the stairs, if you bang on it, it makes kind of this hollow sound of you're stepping on.
It's like a big steel plate type of a thing.
Yeah, with a carpet on top, right?
Yeah.
So we got.
Is there a carpet on top of that?
It seems like it.
I don't know. It was pretty loud. I heard it too. I was in the base camp, and I heard them coming in, and I heard it, and I heard you guys
did?
react. Oh yeah, I heard it all the way where I was at.
Yeah, it was loud.
You guys.
Well, and we felt it. We felt the vibration. So we felt and heard the boom. So something at the top, right before that the stairs go down, somebody banged on it really hard or stepped really hard.
Like a sledgehammer went bang right at the top of that thing. It was loud.
We're like, ooh, it's starting. It's going to be a good night.
So that was a lot of it. Now, there is one other thing I did want to talk about. We didn't really talk much about Turkey Pete. He was a German immigrant who, in 1918, he killed a guy and was sentenced to life in prison. And he was there for so long, and he actually was due to be paroled, but he kind of lost his mind while he was there, and
thought it's safer for him to stay.
They thought it was safe for him just to stay there, and he was comfortable there, and so he stayed there. He's called Turkey Pete because he was in charge of all the prison's turkeys.
The turkey farm.
In one of his dementia moments, he sold all the turkeys to
somebody for 25 cents.
Yeah,
a piece. Yeah.
It's that was food. So he was no longer in charge of there weren't any turkeys to be in charge of anymore, but yeah, he ended up dying there at an old age, and he was the only inmate to ever have an open casket funeral there in the big theater that was built there. Now, there was one other actor. This is one that Terry found, and you won't find this written anywhere. And we thought this was actually a really cool story. There's an actor that you've probably all seen, and so you'll have to look him up and Google him and go, oh yeah, I know that guy. But he was an inmate there. He actually, in high school, he was from Montana. In high school, wanted to be actually president of the United States. And people signed his yearbook, "Don't forget me when you're president." And while he was in Vietnam, because a lot of people go to Vietnam and a lot of violence happens, and it kind of affected him. And he came home, and he actually bought and ran a bar. But he was one of those bar owners that if you came into his bar and you were causing problems, he would take you out back and beat the crap out of you. Not he wouldn't stand for it, not in his bar. Well, there was one gentleman that had come in that was belligerent and whatnot, and he took him out and beat him up, and he actually broke two of his legs, and broke both of his legs, fractured his skull, brain concussion, fractured shoulder. So he beat all that, and then he threw him out in the street. Well, come to find out, this guy's a lawyer, an attorney. He comes back, presses charges, and this particular gentleman is relieved of his bar and is sent to prison, and he's sent for 40-year sentence for beating this guy up. And so he's there at the Montana State Prison, and there was a whole... Sorry, that was me. I talk with my hands, and I keep hitting the microphone bar. There was a whole effort of trying to get him acquitted, or at least get his role reduced, because it was pretty extreme. You just beat a guy up 40 years.
By the way, my stomach just growled, so if you guys hear that, I'm tagging it.
Okay. Well, I'm almost done here. But so anyway, you come to find out that the judge who sentenced him was a political rival. So this guy's grandfather was a politician. I think he was like a senator. And he was a political rival that kept losing to this inmate's grandfather. And so he had kind of some animosity towards the family. He's like, yeah, all right, 40 years, dude. Hard labor in state pen. Anyway, so while this gentleman's there, he decides, well, I can't be a president anymore. Can't be a politician anymore. Definitely can't become a bar owner. He was an alcoholic himself, you know. And so being a bar owner and then drinking yourself doesn't usually go very well. So he couldn't go back to his bar. He's kind of like, well, my only options are, what can I do where they don't ask you if you're a convicted felon? And he's like, Hollywood's full of criminals. So he decides he wants to become an actor. So he sends a kite, what they call a kite. It's a letter. The prison term they call it was a kite for whatever reason. But they send it to the warden, and he asks the warden for a copy of Hamlet. And so he still actually has the paperback book of Hamlet. And that's where he determined he wanted to be an actor. He actually did some acting there, and eventually he did get out. He only served a few years over that time.
Because didn't he get out for good behavior and they reduced the sentence?
It seems like everybody gets out of prison fairly quick.
Yeah.
You know, you're sentenced to 99 years and you serve 3. You know, it's the way the system works. But at any rate, so he goes on and becomes it looks like after 2 years he was released. But you would know him from the show ER. He also was on Hannah Montana. He's been on a whole slew of different shows, but his name's Troy Evans. So everybody go to your Google, look up Troy Evans. You look at him and go, I know that guy. I've seen that guy before. He was on, like I said, he was on ER. He was like the receptionist for like 8 years on the show.
I think he's got like 100 and some like
crazy amount
credits. Like,
He was on The Frighteners.
Yeah, he's on
That's
the
right,
Frighteners.
Frighteners.
Yeah, that's a fine Michael J. Fox horror.
Great movie.
That's not that good of a show. Please don't watch it. Okay, we'll go ahead and watch it.
The Frighteners? I liked
love
it.
that movie.
Right? We're talking about the same one? Michael J. Fox?
yeah.
and
Yeah,
Yeah,
I liked it.
love that movie.
It's a comedy, for sure.
Exactly.
well, yeah.
That's the type of horror movie I can handle.
Without having nightmares.
Exactly.
We're not watching, not talking country. Okay. So anyway, now he also, another funny story he told, and this was a story that he had told on a podcast. Terry listens to the podcast when she works her graveyard shifts, and the show it was on is called Inside the Guest Studio. So she wanted to make sure we got some credit to those guys. But he tells the story, and the host is like, you need to update your Wikipedia page, man, because this is like fascinating. He's like, yeah, I just never really talked about it. So it's just a personal story that he had told. And he did say that he would go places and he would get recognized by, people would go up to him and say, oh, like, how do you know me? You know, and there's a little girl that walked up to him and goes, yeah, can I get your autograph? And he's like, oh, yeah, do you know me from Hannah Montana? She's like, no. He named off like a couple other shows and like, how do you know who I am? She goes, I have no idea who you are. I just needed an autograph from somebody who was over 40. Or over 50, whatever the age was. And he's like, how old do you think I am? And she's like, 39. Or under 40. And it was just like, barely, just like, okay. I butchered the story. I'm sorry, Terry. But anyway, it was an interesting story from a person who actually served there as a prisoner. Now, one other thing on there, at least it reminded me of it. So I have a cousin who was adopted. And she was texting me while I was up there because I was making posts on Facebook. And she was like, I was born there. And come to find out, her dad was locked up there. Her mom was also locked up there. And she was born up there in Deer Lodge. And she doesn't know much about her parents other than that they were really not very good people. And she was like, I'm very grateful for my cousins who, my aunt and uncle who adopted her and gave her the life. But I thought that was really interesting. She's like, can you send me some pictures? And I'm like, really nothing to send pictures of here. It's a tiny town. But it was very interesting to find that out, when we were...
So cool.
Yeah.
To have a connection like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's a little bit older than I am. But nonetheless, I digress. Well, we have gone on long enough. Do you guys have anything else you want to conclude with?
Nope, that was it for me.
I'm good.
We have rambled. I'm sure Josh cut out a ton to bring this episode to you.
Yeah.
And we'll save it for future episodes. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you had fun. If you get a chance, please go to the Old Montana State Prison. Go take the tour during the day. They do rely on people coming and touring to fund the operation there. It is a state park, is it not?
No, it's a privately owned.
It's a privately owned, but they do run off of donations. They also have a car museum next door, which is really cool.
And it's huge.
It's huge. Oh my gosh. A lot of cool cars.
And they auction off a vintage car every
year. Yeah.
Was it a Shelby Mustang that they had on this one? That they're
No.
No, it was a 75.
But it was a beautiful
so
Mustang
beautiful.
that I really wanted, although I don't think my legs would fit between the steering wheel and the seat.
And then you have to go eat at Prison Pizza.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Prison Pizza.
It's delicious.
Major props to those guys.
Fresh meat, that's the best one. Oh,
I
so
don't know,
good.
they were
Electric
also
chair
good.
was pretty good too. Though.
Yeah, the electric chair was good.
Yeah.
They use lots of fun prison terminology to make their pizzas.
Well, you kind of have to. It's not like it's a big town full of... I think it'd be on the tourist dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're right next to the prison, so it does help.
So go check them out. And then other things to check out, go check out our Facebook page. You can find us at Cold Spot Paranormal Research on Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can also find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.
Yes. And you can also find our Paranormal Peeps podcast page on Facebook as well. We will be posting our EVPs and those pieces of evidence on there, so you guys can come check it out.
As well as some pictures on the Cold Spot Paranormal.
I think there's already some
Research
on
page.
there, isn't
Yes.
there? Do we have that team picture we took yet? Is that posted there?
It's on the reel.
It's on the
Yeah.
reel
At
on
the very end of the
Instagram.
reel, but
That's
it's
on
real.
Instagram, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'll post some. I took a ton of pictures of the
Yeah.
prison.
And so we'll post some more pictures and some fun stuff in there.
So until we see you next time.
Stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.